Okay, welcome back for this week of the little trio here. Sometimes it goes into 4 people. We have a few different people jumping in. But thanks again for everybody that tunes in or maybe watches the replay back. Obviously, Rash, Rich, Sam, and myself love jumping in here on my Tuesday afternoon, but your Tuesday morning, nighttime for other people, wherever you are. But this week, I am introducing it because I think the boys recognize that this really is my jam, and it seems to be something that we have all managed to come back to, like time and time again, in terms of like improving ourselves or improving our life or improving our relationships or reaching our goals. Nearly every situation that we end up talking about or taking a journey with will more or less come back to this very pivotal moment. And sometimes I think along the personal development, in the personal development world, when we talk about love and self-love, it can sometimes have like this energy or connotation of it's quite flaky or it's quite feminine, it's quite girly. But for me personally, really beginning to understand what we are talking about when we talk about loving ourselves, how we show up from that place, why it's difficult. This is absolutely the power punch right here. That is really, truly understanding what it is and how it feels to love who we are. And yet, really, guys, to get to that point of being able to really embrace that, it's such a good topic here. Why is it so hard to love myself? Why is it so hard for us to love ourselves? What gets in the way of this fundamental element of our personal development and our life is to literally just be comfortable in our own skin, because that is what loving ourselves is, I believe, is to be comfortable in our own skin in whatever state we are. And what's really going on when we find that difficult. So we're going to kind of take a little journey around that topic today. So Sam, I am actually going to I said to you before we got on air, I'm just going to bring it back up because I loved this. I think this speaks volumes. So this was a post on Sam's stories on Instagram that I came across. So people seem to think embracing life means to jump off cliffs and kiss strangers. Maybe it's just slowly learning to love yourself. So I'm going to throw it to you first up. That obviously resonated with you, otherwise you probably wouldn't have shared it on your stories. So I'm going to kick it over to you with explain yourself, Sam.
Nice one. Andrea, thank you so much. What a great segue to this show. So thanks and welcome everyone for joining us. Thank you, Andrea and Rash, our co-hosts. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. It's super awesome. And before we kick off the show, I posted that, like you rightly said, something resonated, something clicked. And I just felt it was pretty fitting for today's episode or this week's episode of the concept of learning how to love yourself. And before we dive a little bit further, I'm going to do a quick, Anchorman intro. So welcome everyone, wherever you are. Thanks for joining in today on the HIT show. HIT standing for Human Investment Technology, where the most important investment is in you. So we bring to you a weekly show today talking about all things mindset, lifestyle, sports, fitness, and even meditation. So we talk about that in a very casual setting. So we think of this place as our coffee shop, so to speak. So join us at the coffee shop, at the coffee table, and enjoy your cup of Java wherever you are. If you're not a coffee drinker, you're maybe a tea drinker, whatever it is. We certainly enjoy having you here, and we hope our intention is to offer a lot of value in the space of self-development and overall lifestyle. Sharing some tips and tricks on what you could do to make your life more fuller or more bright, whatever that is for you. Because certainly we're going through a time which is fairly challenging, so we'll call it what it is, and we believe that we could share some learnings and some experiences that we personally take as they say, very seriously in our lives, be it myself, maybe Andrea and Rash, where we teach this kind of stuff and different kind of techniques. Okay, we all come from kind of different spaces. So on the topic of why is it so hard to love myself, like you rightly said, Andrea, I think that word is a little bit, lovey-dovey, a little bit fluffy, sometimes even a little bit woo. Like, what does that even mean sometimes to love yourself? And if I may give kind of my interpretation of that is, it's really spending time with yourself, cherishing your own moments, cherishing your inner world, and nurturing it. And I emphasize on the word nurturing it because let's face it, if we're not in a good space mentally or physically, how can we really give of ourselves to other people? How can we really share genuinely? And I feel that if we give some time, some important special time to ourselves, we'll be able to be in a better space that will, give time to other people, attention, where it's the right thing to do. So that's my interpretation of loving yourself, really nurturing, understanding, maybe some old beliefs, some old conditioning that you were programmed, at a much younger age that you kept on doing over a long period of time. And it's just basically self-inquiry, giving yourself enough attention, enough care, enough love, to dig deeper and then ask yourselves those questions, because ultimately, this life is for you, right? So if it's not clicking with you for any given reason, whatever that may be, then I think it's upon us to really find out, why do I do it this way? Why do I keep running into the same kind of girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever it is? And that's what love means to me. So, Rich, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, Rash has got his hand up there.
Yeah, no, look, I got to jump in because you haven't explained. I'm going to be on just for a few minutes today. Unfortunately, I've got a meeting with the Australian Embassy. I've got to renew my daughter's passport, so I can't change the dates. So unfortunately, but I love this topic, and I'm sure maybe Anne can maybe help out and co-host with us today. But unfortunately, this subject, if it can be for next week also, depending on what you guys decide, I think it's, and I said before, and Sam was laughing at me, it's a ripper subject. So yeah, I'm really interested. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to put it out there. I think this is one of the most important topics of all the episodes we've done. So I'm spewing, as they say, that I can't be on for the remainder of it. But fingers crossed that you guys decide to do a part 2 of it. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Yeah. Have you got time to actually answer this? What's your take? Why do you think it's so hard for people to love themselves?
In 2 words.
I haven't thought about it much, and before these podcasts, I like to be on the spur of the moment. Look, I think it's from conditioning from a young age. I remember when I was a kid, people say, "Oh, you love yourself," and it was almost like a bad thing that you loved yourself. That would be my sort of thing, and the way it's portrayed in society now, it's a little bit different. But I remember growing up in my days, it was like it wasn't a positive thing to say that you love yourself. So, and there's a lot of things that test us, So we're not taught of the inner love, and then as you get older, you start realizing what's reflected in the inside reflects on the outside. So the material things and external things is not a representation of what's inside. It's the other way around. So I think it's a bunch of things from society to the conditioning of kids. That's all. So yeah.
I love that. I love how you said there that from the inside reflects out, not the other way. Because I think that can be something that is really important to realize, is that anything out there doesn't define who we are. It's what's in here that defines out there, and being able to differentiate between those two is one of the best ways to actually show up with love for yourself and show up in your truth of that.
So here's the thing, like I've said this to so many people, I've probably said it on the podcast, is You get a haircut, you feel good for a day, 2 days, 3 days. You get a new car, everything else, right? But for the actual sustainable change is loving yourself and being okay with yourself, even with your idiosyncrasies and everything else. So, I mean, for long-lasting change and to say I'm there 100% is I'm not there 100%, but I work on it. So, and based on that conditioning, it's a hard thing. I mean, someone might say, "Oh, you love yourself." I remember as a kid, it was such a bad thing. I don't know if people can, agree to that in the comments. You put it, but I know Sam, for you in Canada, growing up, would it be the same? Or
Yeah.
I mean, Andrea, you probably experienced that, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's, in various different settings as well, and some can really impact us more. Like I think I probably experienced it in my family, like with close relationships and stuff, where I was accused of thinking I was better than other people and stuff, and especially when it's your family, and then or maybe close friends or something. Those elements in our life that are meant to help us feel safe and secure, and meant to, well, we think they're there to foster this our well-being and our security, and sometimes they can be the very places that actually confuse us more, because the discomfort, I think, sometimes that we can feel if you really tune into that is the disconnect between what the outside world is saying and what we're naturally feeling. So you can naturally feel confident and that you're good at this thing, but when you share that, the feedback might be, well, you just up yourself, or it's not a good thing to own your magnificence or own your your worth or whatnot. And I think that's what creates this discomfort. That's what creates this angst within us, is because the feedback we're getting doesn't match what we know to be true. And what we know to be true, there is a difference between being confident and owning your worth and just being okay with who you are, and this arrogance of needing the world to know it. And sometimes that can play out. Sometimes we don't actually recognize ourselves. We don't own our worth. We are needing the world. We are needing to draw that from out there. So it does come off. Our energy does come off as being needy or being arrogant, because we actually haven't been able to see in underneath, in recognizing that, well, am I actually okay with who I am? Or am I only okay if the world affirms me? And so that can, play out in different ways. And then I think just maybe with age, or people that are starting to feel that disconnect within them, just start to ask a few more questions around that. And yeah, but for me, the discomfort is the disconnect between what we know in our heart. I will always go to that, what we know in our heart to be true, and how we do love who we are, opposed to what's being projected back out or towards us.
So interesting. Sorry, Sam, I'm going to hog this a little bit because I've got 2 minutes to go before I leave. The other thing, in addition to what you're saying, is there's people out there that love others more, or feels easier to love others more, externals, than themselves. So they show a lot of love out there, but when it comes to them, they don't show it.
Why do you think they do that?
Well, that's what I was going to say. And that to me means that that's proof or evidence that if you can love outside, you can love with inside. Why do I think that? There's a number of reasons why. You can't just pinpoint one. But when I work with people like that, that just shows proof. So if you can prove that you can show that love to your child, to your best friend, etc., you can also do it to the other side, and it's guiding them to say it's okay. It's conditioning, I think.
Yeah. You mean that it's possible, right, Rich?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Are you gonna dash now, Mr. Rash?
I'm gonna dash in about a couple of minutes. So you guys carry on. Thank you all. So yeah, put me in the.
We'll see you next week. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, and maybe you can put the be extended if
because you're putting it out there. You're putting it out there, aren't you?
I am putting it out there, and I think you guys, if you can, I'll send a link to Anne and see if she wants to
That
jump
would be
on.
great, Rich. That would
Yeah.
be great if you can, because I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll send it to Anne now,
Good.
and she can jump on.
So we've got quite a few people, coming in, and I'm noticing, Andrea. I'm not sure if you're noticing, but every week it's kind of growing, this group, which is awesome, and it's super cool that we're talking about a very cool subject, very close to everyone's heart, I'm sure. Because let's break it down. I mean, like Rash was saying, it plays out in different ways. You can't pinpoint it. It plays out in different ways. But the fact that we are able to love other people and not love ourselves, at least for now, at least is a starting indicator, is what I see, that we have that potential of doing that. We're able to love. So the question is, can we shift that love to start with us? Because we can give more of it. It's, some people say it's inexhaustible, like it's got so much power, and it just keeps giving. And I
Can
think,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
I just want to shine a light on just a different take around that in terms of loving others, and it can be challenging to love ourselves if I can. So I just want to preface, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. I'm just posing maybe a question or a contemplation. I love the word contemplation because I think it's such a gentle way of just really being able to find out our own truth, is to contemplate it and see what comes up for ourselves. But what I have begun to realize for myself, and in terms of holding space for other people, this finding it hard to love ourselves is because we wonder whether we're worthy of it. And we wonder whether we're worthy of it because we've been conditioned to believe we're not. We've, had things happen in our childhood, like we talk about, that along the line somewhere we've been given messages, or we've taken up the belief that we're not worthy of it. And so I want to get really, really direct in saying, if it's really, really, really easy to love others and we show up in that space all the time, that can seem really fantastic and really wonderful. And yet I beg to ask whether or not are we doing that because we're trying to prove, and I'm not saying deliberately, I'm saying subconsciously, that's our way of measuring whether we're enough to be loved. Because we haven't yet realized within ourselves and owned that truth that we are enough to be loved the minute we were conceived, born, starseed, whichever way you want to talk about it, but that truth sits so firmly in our heart, then we are possibly going to try and derive that truth and derive the evidence of that by loving really hard on the outside world. Because if I show up like this, then I'll be enough to be loved. If I do this, then I'll be accepted. If I do this, and so we are pouring love out there, when essentially what we really want to know is, am I enough to be loved in return? And that, in some ways, can be a bit of a game changer. Oh, Rash is back.
Yeah, no, I'm back and I'm gone. Wishing you a great show. Bye, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. All the best.
And so I don't like, that's not a criticism in any way. It's a contemplation point of really being able to become conscious with why and how we are showing up with love, and whether it comes from a place of unconditional, like I'm doing this just because, I'm showing up in this way just because I'm just here to love, or whether there's some underlining kind of need to be, will you love me? Will you love me? Am I important enough if I do X, Y, Z? And that can unravel a whole lot, and it can absolutely give you so much more freedom back if you begin to understand that you are already enough.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's so true. Andrea, I just want to add to that point. So I'm operating some controls as I do this, but I actually made a couple of notes. I like to make quick notes when something resonates, and I don't want to forget it. And so I hung on the word of work, work in progress. It's all work in progress. I think this is something that Rash was alluding to, and I think that's so true. every day is a work in progress. You're almost reminding yourself, and dare I use the word, condition yourself to remember yourself that you need to spend a little bit more time. You grow a little bit more in power, and you feel empowered by doing so. But I think it's a work in progress, and I think once we really understand that no one's really perfect, there's no such thing as this whole perfect thing, but I think we're working on something. And the fact that we're able to work on something, even if it's a little bit every day, makes a world of difference. I don't know if I kind of like diverted a little bit from what you said, Andrea, but
No.
So,
but I think also with that, Sam, is that that's an amazing start just there in regards to loving yourself. Like, can we accept that we are a work in progress? Can we accept that even if we're not where we think we should be, or we're not showing up how we would want to, or can we actually just allow ourselves the space and the grace to be okay with where we are? Even if we want to be somewhere different, even if we want to feel something different. Like I said to you before we jumped on, you could feel my energy. I'm a pretty honest person, so I came in pretty flat today. Like, today's not the greatest day going around. There's a fair bit going on in our world, and I feel it. I feel it in my community. I feel it in my country. I feel it in the across the globe. And so today's not really that chirpy chippy Andrea, and can I be okay, and can I love myself enough that it's all right for me to be in this flatness, instead of trying to fight my way out of it, and that it's a work in progress. Like, maybe tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll feel a little bit more sprightly, or I'll make a choice to do some sort of exercise, or do something that is nurturing and nourishing, and be conscious about those things.
Yeah, no, totally get that. I actually wanted to shift gears. I'm noticing, Anne's going to join us very, very shortly when her connection is spot on and her position is good to go. She'll give me a thumbs up. But I wanted to change gears a little bit, very, very abrupt. The idea of, when someone passes away and you want to send your condolences. And I had a few events where I was speechless. Like, the words couldn't come out. And I just sat there, and a big part of me kind of hated it because I should have said something. And then as I, you grow older, you get a little bit more mature, I suppose. And you kind of think to yourself, you know what? That's good I didn't say anything. My presence was enough. I was just there standing next to that person. And I felt that was just enough because the moment required it to be that way. Words do not do justice sometimes. And I feel that, to me, that's a good representation of love sometimes. Not even through words, it's just presence. And sorry, I switched gears a little bit, but I find the similarities of energy when you think you're required to say something, but if you do, because you're forced to, it doesn't come out genuine enough. Like, it's useless. It's kind of cheap. And so I felt, don't negate the power of presence. Sometimes presence alone is just enough sometimes. And if you feel the need to actually say something, I think those words will bubble up on their own. What do you think about that, Andrea?
Yeah, and I think I really love you drawing attention to presence, because that can be so important within ourselves. Like, at the end of the day, we are only going to show up for others and the outside world in the same capacity that we can show up for ourselves, or we'll probably end up depleted. So you can give, and people do. That's totally fine. But I'll guarantee you'll end up depleted at some stage.
Andrea, that's so beautiful. Can you repeat that first section you just said?
No, because I don't think about what I'm saying. It just comes. It was about presence.
Love that. We can show up for others as much as we can show up for ourselves.
In the same capacity. We can only show up for the outside world and others in the same capacity that we show up for ourselves, or we'll probably end up depleted.
Crazy. That's a beauty. Guys, jot that down, record it, write it down, imprint it in your mind, because that's so golden. And I'll explain why a little bit later, but I think what you said was super because it's all about that attention we're giving. So, previously to others, that how about we start giving that amount of attention, or maybe a little bit less, to them, and a little bit more to us, just for the time being, and see how that works. So
Yeah.
I'm going to invite.
And literally, sorry, and literally just being able to gauge that in terms of, that's why presence is so important. And this question is, why is it so hard to love myself? So the why, this is what I would call people back to each and every time. Like, why? Why am I showing up? Like, why did you feel like you should say something to try to, support someone? Like, when we can become conscious of why we are feeling what we're feeling or doing what we're doing, and be very just contemplative about it. Like, I hear people like all the time, they just keep doing the same thing. Like, I have to, I've got to go do this for Christmas because this is what my mum wants. I've got to, this is a weird example, but do you know what I mean? I've got to do this because they just expect it of me. That's where, okay, so why are you showing up in a capacity that is not aligned with you? And I'll guarantee that the stories will begin to unravel very quickly. Selfish if I don't do it. Oh, it's not fair. Oh, they might get upset with me. Okay, and what does that mean? And continually unfolding, what does it mean? Because I'll guarantee that if we are not conscious of why we're doing things and the way that we're loving, then we'll be doing it out of obligation, possibly. And the minute you're doing something out of obligation means that you don't love yourself enough to experience other people being disappointed, other people criticizing. Like, we are so afraid of what the world thinks of us that it completely tarnishes what we think of ourselves. Completely. And that's why it's hard to love ourselves, because we're so afraid that the rest of the world aren't going to if we start to. And that scares the shit out of most of us.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Definitely a very real thing. I'm gonna be inviting Anne on because she's now waving and thumbs up, and so hello, Anne.
Hello. Can I just add to those absolutely amazing words that Andrea just said? I think the biggest question we need to ask is, why are we not asking why? And I think one of the reasons is that because we're not ever given permission to have our voice heard. I mean, we're actually, it's more like we're brought onto this world and we have to consider everybody else before ourselves. And the whole point of this discussion is we have to give ourselves permission to be. And if you're brought up in your entire life always being told you have to consider everybody else's choice before your own, you have to consider that your everyone else's situation is appeased and calm before you even consider yourself. So the point is that we're brought up not to matter. And going back to what Rush said about children, I mean, for me, if you look at children in their very formative years, they are always happy-go-lucky, and they literally live in their own world, and the only person that is important is them, and they're glowing for it, right? And slowly over time, that glow disappears because their permission to own themselves is taken away, and that's what we call by conditioning. And I hate to put this cap on, but I think if we consider this whole concept of religion tells us that we don't matter first. We have to come second, and we need to keep everybody else at bay first. So the biggest question about love is to be able to do exactly as Andrea said, to realize, well, why am I doing what I'm doing, so that I can honor my own inner voice and my own inner belief and my own inner feelings. And if we have to get to the bottom of why we don't give ourselves permission to do that. And until we do that, we can't move forward. Because what we're actually doing on doing that is that we have to rewrite the entire manual of living according to ourselves. So first of all, it's a huge realization that, my goodness me, I've just taken my voice away. So my why doesn't exist. And two, when you finally realize, you think, oh my goodness, now I have to go back and recheck everything. What is it that I do believe? And that takes a lot of courage, and especially even more courage than to put yourself out there, because we've been threatened from day one that we're not allowed to have that permission, to have that entitlement of simply being who we are. And we know if we go back to that, those formative days as children, that's when we loved ourselves. And And not only that, I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much time. I'm sorry, guys. But if you do love yourself, amazingly, you will love what you do, because it's about being authentic, and it's not asking for anybody else's permission or acceptance, but simply doing and living authentically. And I can tell you what, it's a huge shift to make, but when you do, that's when the smile comes on your face. What do you think about that, guys?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in, Andrea, if that's okay. Just something really quickly. Thanks for sharing that, Anne. I agree with that. I really agree with that. But there's some people that just like, so where do we start? Like, how do I start? Like, what do we do? And there was just some references that came to my mind, like that do certain techniques like Toastmasters. I'm not sure if you people are familiar with like places like Toastmasters and even drama shows, people where they do drama, and the reason what they do is they give them a space or a platform to just talk. It's just simply talking, whatever it is you want to talk about, just talk. And they noticed, and research has found, that the more you talk and be more vocal about what you have in your mind, whatever that could be, the more your voice becomes, gets out there, and you start to express yourself. And through that form of expression, you find that you're being heard. And that's really the most important thing here is practice telling your story. Start a conversation with absolutely anyone, and then just tell them what's on your mind, whatever it is, good, bad, or ugly, and just explain it. At least start from that point. So I just wanted to share that very quickly because it came to my mind. I know that they do it at the Toastmasters Club. I haven't done a Toastmasters Club, but they teach people to storytell. And the purpose behind storytelling is to give you a voice. And the more you talk things through, the more you communicate, the more verbal, you start to express yourself. And when you express yourself, it's a pretty good feeling. Like you're being heard. Okay. And so I mean, I'm gonna be selfish in saying that part of why I do this show, to be honest, is to be heard, but I feel really good about it. Like I've got some sort of a fingerprint or in this whole larger ecosystem, And I encourage you to do the same thing wherever that is, in whichever space that is. Feel free to tell your story, talk about things, because I can tell you it's cathartic. It actually gives you a feeling that I've got it off my chest, or I've been carrying this for a while. Speak up. It's okay. It's okay. Anyways, sorry, that came to my mind.
Yeah. Oh, my dog's going crazy in the background. Sorry. And to add to that, in terms of where do people start, because this is the thing, isn't it? That some people are in like a cycle pattern and they don't really know how to break it. And so I guess that's why we do what we do, because we've been there and we're still doing it, and we like to see people feel different within their, like, I like to see people doing different things, but I'm absolutely 110%. I'm more concerned with how they feel when they're doing it than what they're actually doing, because that's the game changer, I believe. But if we haven't at first attempted to listen to our own truth in the little areas, it's going to be really challenging to be able to recognize it in the big areas. In the big areas where we might be criticized, we might be judged, we might be ridiculed, we might even be abandoned, or, people, like those big, heavy weighted feelings. So at a very first step basis, when you get up, and this might sound weird, I learned this from a beautiful lady that I'm connected to in America, and people might go, really? But trust me, just maybe even try it. But when you get up in the morning, literally ask yourself what you feel like you'd like to wear today, and listen for the answer instead of automatic pilot of just grabbing the clothes. What do I feel like I'd like to wear today? What feeling am I having around that? Whether you're grabbing the shirt because you want to feel confident, maybe you've got a job interview, whatever, but tap into listening to how you feel about each little choice you're making. What do I feel like I want to have for breakfast? And why do I want to have that? Because when you begin to recognize that you can hear and you actually own your truth on these little things, then when you have to step up and say, I don't want to do Christmas lunch because it doesn't work for my family, and you feel aligned with not doing Christmas lunch, then you know that that's your truth because you know what it feels like. It's really hard to actually go out to the world, the big world that's programmed you to believe X, Y, Z, and think that you're going to be able to break that all down if you literally aren't tuned into these little bits and pieces of why you're actually doing what you're doing. And you know, Sam, say for instance for you, you obviously work out a bit. You've got stuff on, you know, you're obviously very physically active, which is fantastic. I admire you greatly. But instead of just going through your routine, what do I feel like I want to work on? Do I want to work on my legs and listen for, you know, or do I want to lift these weights? Or we don't tune into the little things. So we got Buckley's chance in really being able to reshape those bigger things, is in my opinion.
So true, so true. I want to piggyback on that because, you know, you just hit a nerve, Andrea, when you said go and I work out and stuff, and you're absolutely right. Working out is not, it's not for the sake of working out. Those are just devices to allow me to feel better. They're devices. I stress on the word, it's a device. It's not the end goal. Okay. Of course, the byproduct of working out and fitness is obviously feeling good and looking good, but it's a device. So going back to your point, Andrea, you're absolutely spot on. Start on the real small things that you could tackle first, because when the big things come, boy, it can be very overwhelming. So I think that's a great, great tip. And before we move on as well, I want to do a quick refresh for the room. You're tuning into the Human Investment Technology Show, otherwise known as the HIT Show, standing for Human Investment Technology, which means that the most important investment is you. So we're talking about why is it so hard to love myself? And I think it points directly at where are we placing our investment? It's all about an investment. Where are you investing your time? Are you investing in other people and just loving them? Or are you spending more time with yourself and investing more time in yourself? And we feel that's very important to talk about. So, Anne, what have you made of?
Yes.
Why is it so hard to love myself?
Oh, I've got a very important comment.
Please, shoot.
I'd like to say a little bit. I think I'd like people to think about what love is. And love comes straight from the heart. It's like a soul connection. It's not, and what we are conditioned and what we do is our mind. So it's important to realize that you have to see that that's what the problem is, not the problem, but that's the obstacle. The obstacle is our brain. And that's the tool, that's the mechanism that keeps us restrained. So the only way we can really deal with this is to realize that the mind has set up a set of rules that is outside of ourselves. But the concept of loving ourselves is automatic. It comes from the heart. So what we have to start thinking is that we have to reprogram our mind, realize that it has been programmed, and maybe realize that the programming comes from everybody else except for ourselves. And when we can do that, then we can start moving forward. So it's about taking responsibility to realize what has shaped us into who we are, and why it is that there's the obstacles of as Lana said even in the previous show, that she finds it so easy to love everybody else, but doesn't seem to be able to do it for herself. And to realize that that concept of permission is the mind at work, and the mind comes from everybody else around us. So we have to realize that somewhere along that journey, after we were children, from 7 years on onwards, someone's told us that we are not really as lovable if we remain being who we are. And we're only lovable if we become what is expected of us. The minute you get to that realization, that's when you can start reclaiming it. And that's when you can start saying, oh my gosh, is this really me? Or is it you out there? And do I really like who you are and who you've made me become? And I mean, we have to realize that all those unconscious influences that have been poured out by the world around us have really taken over. They've sabotaged who we really are. And so in those small cases, very, very rare cases, just as Andrea and Sam have said, when you start small and you realize, you know, you pick up that flower and you pick, oh my God, isn't it so beautiful? And, you know, and you see the beauty in it. That comes from you. No one's told you that that flower is beautiful. You've recognized it. And the glow that happens on the inside on seeing that is huge. You can't repeat that. So there is a huge difference about doing things so that you get acceptance and you get recognition and, you know, or does it come straight from you? And the more you realize that those little things that really make you you, they give you the biggest hit that you could ever possibly think of. So again, what I'm saying here, it's a case of looking back on your life and realizing, or at least asking yourself, why is it that I feel that I need to do this? And I think I've said in the previous note too, that we have to become aware of the level of conditioning that has literally sabotaged our life. And find the courage to move forward. So, what do you guys take from that?
I want to quickly jump on that because I want to share two book names in case people like to read or just to understand this a little bit more. I want you to check out The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by, I believe it's James Murphy. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, which points pretty much a lot of what Anne was just describing on the conditioning, how that's formed, what actually happens inside our brain, okay, to get imprinted and what we believe to be true and what takes over, like overrides the system after the age of 7 or 8 and how that actually influences us. So that's one book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, James Murphy. The other one is, because I feel that there's a tie-in between that and our habits. Ultimately, all the habits that we learned early on become so hardwired that we begin to think this way, believe this way, and we just keep living our lives this way. So I point you to another book called Atomic Habits by, forget his name, but you can Google it. It's very quick. Atomic Habits, very, very powerful books. And it outlines a lot of, you know, key tricks and techniques as well to really spot those times when you fall into a certain habit. And when we talk about habits, we're talking about, you know, why do I feel this animosity perhaps, or this hatred or this anger towards this person or that person? What's actually happening inside? And that becomes a habit. I'm not sure if, you know, you guys know, but do you know some angry people in your life? Like people that love to be angry? I know a few people, every time I meet them, like they're good people, but they just love like to be pissed off. They love to be angry. It's like, what happened? You know, did someone die or something? And they're like, no, just leave me alone. It's cool. It's cool. And they're always pissed off for some reason.
No, but someone has died.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, Sam, isn't it? Someone actually has died. It's them. And they're angry for it. And instead of realizing that it's coming from them, they project it and think it's everybody else on them. So the big question here is fear, isn't it? Fear of being self.
Exactly. So we were just sharing some resources just to really understand some of the mechanics at work. Okay, one to do with your subconscious mind. The second one is to do with your habits. Anything could be a habit. When you do it repetitively, it becomes a habit. Even an emotion could be a habit. Now, why are we talking about this? Because even if you pretend to be happy right now, and this is a quick exercise, force a smile on your face right now. Just force a smile. Okay, we're just pretending. Okay. If you hold that smile long enough, it'll start to change the wiring inside. Okay. And if you do this long enough, you'll start to change and feel good about what's actually happening. Now this is just a test, okay? They've done research on this, obviously, and they've confirmed it to be true. If you hold a power pose, if you like read the book Power Poses by Amy Cuddy, okay, she's a big TEDx speaker. She was talking about power poses. And she says, if you hold a power move like that for as little as 1.5 to 2 minutes straight, you'll start to rewire, create new, neural pathways that will connect and change your mood. Okay, that's just a quick hack, but exercise with it. It's fun, actually. It's just fun. Okay, and this all points back to spending or investing more time in yourself, i.e., loving yourself, spending that time, that attention. What is love? It's that attention, that time you want to spend with yourself to say, you know what, I count. And I'm going to do some digging here, okay? And I'm going to have some fun with this. And I think if you can make it more playful, more pliable, you'll really enjoy spending time alone with yourself, and with that said, yeah.
Can I just can I just jump in there, because something that keeps coming at me is I want to give the heads up that love doesn't always feel good. Just in case, I think there's this myth that love is meant to feel really good. It's meant to feel so warm and cozy and cuddly and, all that sort of thing that's going to feel amazing. And sometimes love doesn't. And what I mean by that is that in terms of like loving ourselves enough to call bullshit on our own bullshit is one of the kindest things that we can do. And yet it's not going to feel that great. Initially, it's probably not going to feel that great. Okay, same thing with other people, like my scenario before, in terms of saying, no, Christmas doesn't work for me, or whatever it is, actually being able to stand in your truth and own who you are. What happens if that's one of the most loving things we can do for people in our life that have always just manipulated things to get what they want without knowing that? But what happens if that's calling them up to actually begin to investigate why what somebody else does annoys them? Am I making sense with that? Like, that whole, instead of just doing what other people want because, that's what you have to do, what happens if you love them and yourself enough to say, this doesn't work for me? Because that enables them, if they choose to take a journey into, why am I so uncomfortable about her not doing what I want? And they might never do that, and that's not why we choose what we choose, but it gives them the opportunity then to actually explore their own emotional stuff if they choose to. And it's like, my friend used this great example in terms of love. Like, if our child was running out into the middle of the road, right? You're not going to stand on the side of the road with traffic everywhere going, honey, come back. Like, it's really dangerous. Come on, honey, I'll give you a hug, and be all soft. And you're going to friggin' reef their arm and get them out of the way and tell them they'll probably never to do that again. Because that's what love is. And that's what we are called to, is that strength and that dominance with love to protect what we need to protect. So love isn't, I just really want to put that out there, because sometimes I think we can get lost in that. It's meant to feel good, and unless people like me and accept me and stuff, that's not love. And I just think it's really important to differentiate the way that love can show up.
Can I just add to that, Andrea?
Please. Sorry. Yeah, please, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, first of all, from Sam's comment, if you can hold an emotion, in other words, catch yourself when you smile, catch yourself when you get angry, and then look to why it is that you're truly smiling or truly get angry, and then realize, what am I really responding to? And what all this is about is going to what Andrea's saying, is this is all about our own truths, of really stopping ourselves for long enough to see what really is happening and to claim it and own it. Sam, is that what you were also following through with?
Yeah, that was very, very close to that. Exactly, that's where I was going with it, to be honest with you. Claiming it and stuff like that, and then going back to also what Andrea was speaking about, she took it from a different perspective. Yeah, when you hear love, I mean, this is a generalization, of course, but people tend to feel like, oh, like a little bit icky, a little bit ooey, that kind of thing. And thanks, Andrea, for putting a spotlight on the other aspect of it. It's actually looking at and calling yourself out at those moments where you caught yourself doing something you shouldn't be doing or you weren't very comfortable with, and saying, why did I say that? Why was I being so egoistic about that in that setting or something? So it's also having, I think love is all encompassing. It's having that space, which is ultimately truth. That's truth. I think love is synonymous with truth. I think it's so deeply rooted
And
that
that's
everything is there. Sorry, Anne, did you want to say something?
yeah, and I think it's really important. Yeah, I do. It's really important to realize that the real conversation of this, the real focus of this, is the fact of fear. We can't access love when there's fear that actually stops us from getting there. And to recognize that if we can't overcome the fear, we're never going to be able to do this self-love we're talking about. And so I think it's important that we do address that the fact, the difficulty in claiming self-love is the difficulty of how do we overcome fear. And I think the one thing I'd say is, again, if we look to, when we do claim the courage to actually say, my God, why am I doing this? I don't feel this is right. And I find courage to say no, then you claim love. So I think I need to say to people, this isn't an easy journey. And I think Andrea is also talking about this lack of ease in the journey, in that we have to, this level of erosion, this level of mind play that's limiting us is all fear. And we have to give ourselves permission to go back and find who was it that gave us the obstacle to keep ourselves honored, and to give ourselves permission to claim ourselves as being A-OK Jose. And we know that we actually do know those people, and we do know the instances, but it's important for us to claim, my gosh, I can't keep letting this happen to me. I have to find the strength to call it out. This is only for us, no one else to know this, and to realize I can't allow that intrusion anymore in my life. I can rewrite the book. And so the minute you do claim and you put the finger, you can actually put your finger on exactly that incident and exactly that situation that made you feel the fear, that disallows you from actually claiming yourself and giving yourself permission to say what you feel, and to say, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. Until we can do that, there is no opportunity for you to claim that smile. I don't know. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
Yep.
You got a response there?
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to say the basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the,
So back to you
I've
guys.
done, oh, sorry. Inner child work a fair bit, and so it speaks very directly to this in terms of being able to understand how we've become who we are, and yet the whole empowerment comes from deciding who we are now, who we believe we are. So we've got to this point based on who we believed we were meant to be for safety. So when we talk about that fear, and like being able to recognize what that fear truly is, like what are we truly afraid of that holds us back? And I think you can attach lots of labels to what the fear is, and I'll almost guarantee that when it boils down, we're afraid that we won't be loved as we are. So rejection, all of those, criticism,
Exactly.
all of those, you will be able to almost strip that away. And basically, most humans' fear around anything will be, will I be loved as I am? If I do this, if I don't do this, if I achieve this, if I don't achieve this, if I say this, if I don't say this, will I be enough to be loved?
Yeah.
And when we really get to the core of it, and
And the
we
question is,
begin to recognize that we love who we are, irrespective of whether the rest of the world does or doesn't, which can be challenging, but sort of simple, but not always easy, then that's the power. The power to go, you know what, like today, like I said before, Sam, you know, I turned up flat. I was crying for an hour before I got on the call. I'm okay with that. My emotions are really sensitive today for whatever reason. I don't need to turn up and pretend like everything's great and, yep, I'm rocking with all this energy. Let's go smash the world. I am who I am. And Sam, you might not like this energy and you might not like this energy. For me, I'm okay with that. And that's the point that we get to, yeah?
I want to ask you something really quickly, Andrea, because you kind of showed up like that. At this point right now, how do you feel right now from when you started the show before we went on air? How do you feel at this point right now?
I feel more settled. I'm exhausted because I cried. So I'm not going to lie. Like, my energy is still flat, but I'm okay with that. Because if I'm on a show that is really about people being able to own who they are, then I have to be able to do that for myself. And I'm a no fake it girl as much as I can. Like, I'm not high-fiving today, and I might be tomorrow, and that'll be okay. And so, but definitely being able to talk about this stuff and come back into this and you know, just refresh myself about, well, what's love and how loving am I being to myself throughout this? Because it's really easy to love yourself and feel great about who you are when things are coming together and when life feels like it's on track. The challenge is always, can you still love yourself and can you still be okay with who you are? Sorry, there's a really good
Andrea,
question.
isn't it also important to say that you feel like that you've been honest? I was going to say, it's great that you've been honest to these people. And so they know exactly that for whatever reason, they've overstepped the mark. And that's about you loving yourself enough to speak up. So yeah, it might be tears, but it's tears of frustration that is honest. And so you've walked away saying, this is who I am. You've just overstepped your mark and at least call it out. So you're not just crying to yourself, you're also crying to them. And
no, there wasn't anyone involved.
So you've actually...
There wasn't anyone involved. This has got nothing to do with anyone. This is just...
Sorry, I didn't get that. Oh, it's just with you. Oh, wow. Okay.
This is just my heart.
Again, you're being honest to yourself.
Yeah. And that's what I think, you know, this is about.
But that's you being honest to yourself, right?
Yeah. So Lana's question there, how do you take that control back as an adult?
Yes, very.
So Lana, I'm gonna throw it back to you because I'm definitely someone that isn't here to tell you the answer. So I want you to really sit with that, Lana, and I want you to see if anything comes to the surface of how do you take back control now as an adult.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that can seem really hard. Like, I've got no idea of
the other
like,
question. The other comment is,
yeah. Sorry, Anne.
The other question is to consider where we stand. It's important with Lana, you have to consider about what's the role play. In other words, what game's being played here? Because everything in life is more or less a game. So to take back control is, first of all, to realize where in that hierarchical structure, who is in control, in other words, and if you can say that the other person was taking control away from you, you can then have some level of discernment and judgment, and you're allowed to say, that person was wrong and they overstepped the mark. So I should be questioning what they say, and in turn, how that is then inflicted on me, and more importantly, how I receive it. So you have to also give yourself permission to also feel the real truth beneath it all, and ask questions like, why do that? Why did they take away that power from me? Is that so that they claim power for themselves? And is that fair? I mean, these are the questions, these are the whys that we need to establish for ourselves. But over time, if we don't do it often enough, the habit that Sam was talking about ends up being, I'm not allowed to ask that question. They are automatically right because they are in control, because I need them to love me, because I feel I can't do anything without them, because my survival is dependent on them loving me. So I will succumb. But at least if we realize that, we realize that we're pulling our power away, and it's our choice. So now when you reflect back on why that happened, you realize, okay, I understand why I did that. And now I don't have to keep doing it. Now I can really delve deeper into the truth and know that I don't have to always be the second person. I don't have to be the one, the underdog. I can actually also speak up for myself and claim that voice. And that takes a lot of courage. But at least realizing that you haven't given yourself courage because naturally you were so feeling in need of support and having, security, that's what it pulled it away. So the question is always back to you, Lana. You haven't to ask why. Why did that other person, why do they need to put you in your place? Because they want to feel big and control you so they can get what they want out of your life. But that doesn't mean it's right. But giving that control, it's away the love of yourself. So they're things that you can consider. And all you have to do, this is just a conversation within yourself. So you need to work it out. You could have the opportunity to reflect and realize what really was happening. And then maybe, just maybe, you can get a clearer picture, and then you can make different choices and know that if I take that again with someone else and I defer control and let them have a control over me, then you're not going to feel good again. And is that fair on you? So long finding means to realize that you do have power. You do have to have the level of entitlement. You have to give yourself permission to have that power. And most times, as I said, the way we've been brought up, this level of conditioning, how does the society control us? How does religion control us? You do deserve, and you shall do, I say, I'm more important than you. So once we realize that, then we realize that we're giving our own power away. And in realizing that, then you can start saying, no, I don't want this in my life. I want to realize and breathe the way I want to breathe and take it back. I don't know whether that helps, Lana, but I hope it makes it a way in.
Super cool, Anne. Thanks for expanding on that one. We went down the rabbit hole on that one. That's pretty cool. I hope, Lana, I'm pretty sure Lana was listening to that as well. That's really cool. No, it's really cool. It's really cool that we've touched on that. We've also touched on just a little over the hour. And so this is a real extended version. And so you're tuning into Human Investment Technology, the HIT show. Both Andrea and Anne were absolutely providing some great knowledge and perspectives on the topic of why is it so hard to love myself. And I think this topic, this episode probably doesn't give it full justice. I'm not sure if next week we'll continue on this topic. I'm not sure. We can discuss it, or maybe even surprise you before next week on something really hot and juicy. But hello, Joseph. Just saying hello to everyone.
Sorry, Sam, can I just say, I know that it hasn't been put up there, but I can see it. There is another question from Lana that I would really like to come back to. I feel like it's a little bit unfinished here.
Yeah.
And I would really like the opportunity to be able to move into that. So if we could keep going next week, and kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I'd really love for our audience to do what they're doing, like what Lana's doing, and it's extremely powerful stuff, and it's very courageous, and I really want to honor that. But bring this stuff like this, like bring these questions so that we can kind of help guide you back to you knowing your own answers and knowing how to, because essentially, like for me personally, and I think it's for all of us, essentially we're just one of those tools, like you said, not tools as in idiots, bear with me with this, but like you were saying, Sam, your exercise and your gym work and stuff, it's a tool for you to feel good. It's a tool for you to be able to create the energy and the environment you want to live your life in and how you want to feel. That's no different to what we are. We are just a tool for people to come and, just either learn from, lean into, listen to, contemplate for themselves. And I think it'd be really, really great if people could, keep posing this stuff, keep throwing this stuff and seeing if there's little nuggets of gold they can take away with.
Totally. I actually tagged that question. So I've, tag that question. So Lana, tune in next week. It looks like we're gonna have an extension on this and probably take things in different directions. Lana says, that's a beautiful comment. Lana joins us every week. We'd love having Lana, Gina, Joseph, Di. This show is a definite tool for me, guys. Love it. That's awesome. Thanks, Lana, so much. We call it the coffee shop here. It's just a casual kind of setting. And I think we touched on a lot of points. We're going to be wrapping up right now. I think we'll go take an extension. So I'm sure Rash is going to be delighted to hear that we're going to expand on the love show. Call it the love show. and so we're tuning in next week. Thanks, Anne, for sharing that, and thanks for joining and offering your very deep and your perspectives. I really appreciate that. Coming from someone who's an NLPer, I love hearing that kind of stuff, and it goes down a rabbit hole and really makes me think and wonder. And of course, when people think that that's interesting, that's really self-development. It's investing enough time in yourself and just sitting there for a short while and just asking yourself these really good quality questions, So thank you for raising that, being a co-host today. And I wish you all well. Have an awesome day or week. Guys, do you have any final words before we wrap up? Andrea?
Would have, could have. I'm not sure what Gina's saying there, but no, just thanks again. Love being here with you guys, and it's a great show. So thanks everybody for turning up each week, and for you guys, and we'll share our hearts and our minds again next week.
Nice one. Good. And do you have any final words?
I just want to say one final word, that I think the most important comment here is to realize that we really are, we all deserve the time to be focusing on ourselves. And I think we're so busy in doing and being for everybody else, but by gosh, the better we are for ourselves, the better we'll be for everyone else around us. So, and we do deserve that focus. That's all.
Absolutely. And just to wrap up, I don't know, the age groups of people that are joining us, but there's a lovely band called Kiss. Does anyone remember the band called Kiss? I don't know, back in the late 70s.
Yes.
They actually toured Australia, by the way, in 2018-19, I think. They did a reunion tour there after 40 years. And Kiss have a lovely song that came to my mind called I Was Made for Loving You. So in case you want to listen to it, please listen to it. It's a bit, nostalgia. I'm not sure if you remember it, but it's a lovely rock song. It's called I Was Made for Loving You. And I just felt that it's fitting for this show. So I hope you enjoy that, because it's a lovely band that stood for some real quality music back in the day. So I wish you well. Have a great day, great week, guys. Highly appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. And we hope we've added some value and helped you in some way. Okay? Take care of yourself.
Sam, can I just jump in quickly? That song, I Was Made for Loving You, I want to challenge everyone to listen to the words as if it was their heart singing to themselves. So often we listen to love songs and we put it out there, somebody else. I want you to listen to a love song.
That's right.
As if you're singing it to yourself, and see how it makes you feel.
Ooh, that's a goodie. That's a goodie.
Do it and see how the words hit differently, because they will.
Really important.
That's an awesome task. That's super good. I'm going to do that. Okay, guys, all the best. We're going to be signing off right now in 3, 2, 1. Adios.
See you guys.